What's up, y'all? Welcome back to The Black Experience. My name is Ermias Haggis, your host here, and we are back in season 4, rolling and going through more and more episodes and shows. Today, y'all, I have a very special guest with me today. Today, I have someone who is a filmmaker, he's a musician, and he's part of the larger Bellingham community. So let's put our hands together and let's welcome to The Black Experience my good friend, Remy.
Hey y'all.
How's it going, man?
It's good. I am very much in vacation mode right now. I spent a week in Joshua Tree last week, and it was
Joshua
incredible.
Tree. What is Joshua Tree?
Joshua Tree, so it's in California. Here's Los Angeles. Here's Burbank. Palm Springs is down here, and Joshua Tree is like a little bit further east. So
Okay.
it's pretty far south.
Gotcha. And is it just like is it like tropical weather? Like what's the weather
It
like
is
over
the
there?
high desert.
Yeah.
It is dry and hot and full sun all day long.
So coming back to Bellingham must have been quite the switch up, huh?
Yeah, it was like I was not expecting that sort of climate and that sort of like environment. I knew it was going to be hot, but it really was full sun from like 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. 2 days in, I got so sunburnt that I had to like close the blinds in the house.
Man, I 2 summers ago I was in San Diego, and one of the nights it was like for a trip that I had to go to with some friends. One of the nights we spent the night on the beach before the 4th of July, and I was telling myself, yeah, I got enough, melanin and stuff. I don't think I need any sunscreen. And I kid you not, the day after, man, I had like some of my skin was like peeling off. I had some sunburns here and there. From that day on, man, I was like,
Yeah.
that's the most dumbest thing I've ever said and done. I'm wearing sunscreen all over.
Yeah, the sun down there is different. It's so different. I looked and the UV index on average was like a 9 to 10.
Goodness.
So
Yeah.
look out.
Y'all be careful and watch out for that California sun. It hits different. It feels
Yeah.
different too.
But it was really energizing though.
Yeah.
I got this Airbnb. It was a spa that was on 5 acres of land, and every morning I got up at 5:45 and watched the sunrise. And there's no clouds. There's no like. It was probably the most significant sunrise I've seen in my life because you're watching it come over the mountains,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just this giant orange ball. Like you think of the sun and you think like it's just like a blur or you can kind of see the rays, but it was like the perfect circle rising. And it was I have no words. Like that those few mornings that I had watching the sunrise changed everything.
Yeah. So I know the total solar eclipse happened recently.
Mhm.
Did that pass through California as well?
No.
No?
Well, it did, but I flew in the day of the eclipse. And so we watched it in Burbank and it was like 10%.
Gotcha.
So we didn't really see much.
So not like much of it. Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm a big fan of Stephen A. Smith, and there was a video he posted on his YouTube of him with like the protective glasses and everything, and him watching it. And it was a funny reaction, but I was like, I'm pretty sure he's on the East Coast, so I don't know how far, it stretched down to the West Coast
Yeah.
too. But
Yeah, I think it had a weird path. Like I know the Midwest got it, like a total. But yeah.
yeah, something cool. Well, but Remy, man, it was an honor connecting with you at the coffee shop last time, and getting to know you through another connection, Eric, who we've had here on the podcast too. But man, like, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background and kind of your upbringing.
Yeah. So my background is kind of a full story. Like it's all encompassing. I think the high level overview is I am a black trans man adopted into a white family, and have been in like the creative arts and human services both indirectly and directly my entire life. I just turned 25, and have also been a musician for, I think 19 years this summer, and for the past, I'd say like 7 to 8 years, have been working part-time at a studio in New York doing sound design and film scoring for HBO and Showtime. Have worked with Microsoft, VH1, Barstool Sports. We got to do the voiceovers for Sesame Street, which was really awesome to see.
Sheesh.
Yeah, we worked on, can't remember which Spider-Man movie, but one of them. Um, and then I've just been making documentaries for people, been doing like little artist documentaries, been writing for a number of artists and then working with artists as well. Uh, got to meet Leon Bridges and Katy Perry, and Miley Cyrus, and just like learn from Matchbox 20 and Seven Dust and Fall Out Boy. Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. And then also, my background is also in education and project management and kind of just whatever I want to do kind of just seems to come to me. And it's like, all right, this is your time to step into this and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, would you say like you don't really believe in coincidences? Do you think everything kind of happens for a reason?
I don't know if everything happens for a reason, but I think like for me, every time I put my full self into something, it happens. Like any time that I invest in myself what I want to get out from the universe, like it comes back twice as strong. So I don't know if there's like the reason why it happens is just like for me, I invest in myself. Other than that, I don't know.
Yeah. And that part you just said, the investing in yourself. I've heard that a lot on like motivational videos you'd find on YouTube, and it's like the greatest investment is investing in yourself, because if you have the best version of yourself, then you could do X, Y, and Z and all that good stuff. But
100%.
sheesh, man. So there's a lot to unpack there, because I mean, you kind of just like brushed through like Katy Perry, Leon Bridges, like these are big names we're talking about. And then you also mentioned that, so you just turned 25,
Yes.
and you've been learning music, and you've been playing music for 19 years.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of experience. Tell us a little bit about what instruments you play and kind of like what got you into music.
So I play drums, bass, guitar, piano. I sing and I songwrite and produce. My adoptive mother, I don't know why I said mother like that. She played piano. She passed when I was 6, and I don't have any memories of her teaching me music or like teaching me piano or anything. I just remember she had a piano, and I maybe heard her play twice. So I'm still trying to figure out where kind of like the creative side in me came from, because I don't have a lot of like biological family information. I don't know who, or like I know I have siblings, but I don't know who they are and what their interests are. So as I'm like building this life for myself and building this story, I'm also trying to figure out like where did this come from? Because I know I'm not the only one. Like I'm not just like placed here on Earth as this like weird spiritual like supernatural being. Like I know somewhere down the line in my family, like my biological family, there has to be another one of me somewhere. But I got my first, I think I got my first drum set at 5, and my first guitar at 6. And dog, my parents put up with that drum set. God damn, like that. Honestly, that was very formative for me.
Yeah.
And then when my mom passed away, that was also another avenue to really tap into music and writing and sort of visual media as a way to like process what's going on. But my dad, he was I think he was creative director for The Limited through Macy's in the 80s. And he's been a photographer all my life. Still has a studio at our house in Kansas. And really just like pushing the boundaries of what it means to be a creative in the modern day. My brother is the complete opposite of me. He is oh God, what does he do? He works in supply chain management. So like the other part of the brain.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I'm trying to think, probably like 8 or 9, there's a guy in our neighborhood who taught music to kids. And so I grew up like cycling through 5 or 6 different bands, and I never had any formal drum or guitar lessons. It was just kind of like I saw and heard what I wanted to play, and I just went and taught myself.
Wow.
And that's where like that ear comes from, and I don't know like where, but I'd say 99% self-taught.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah, on like everything in my career.
Yeah. So not just music, but
Not just
also
music.
film
Yeah,
and
film,
all that
music,
stuff.
human services, all of it is like, you want to do it, go and do it.
So it almost sounds like you were kind of just gifted to go into that.
I think so.
And you know what I mean? Because I mean, how many people are just like self-taught and then they end up working with huge names because of how good they are and what they do and stuff. Do you have like any favorite? Let's say you're after a long day of work, you're coming home, you're unwinding, you just want to relax, chill out, and you want to play some music. What kind of music are you playing?
It really depends. Lately, I haven't been listening to a lot of music lately. I a lot of the time I come home and I listen to just like brown noise, or I put in like
What is
my.
brown noise?
It is. You ever heard of white noise?
I've heard of white noise. Yes.
So brown noise is the same concept as white noise, just a different frequency.
Gotcha.
So it's lower, sometimes a little bit softer. Yeah, so I listen to brown noise, or I put in my AirPods and noise cancellation and don't listen to anything. Because I'm finding now, with my career taking off and all of these things that I do throughout the day, like I hear so much and I'm thinking in my head so much that when I come home, I just need silence. Like I need that time to sit in silence. And it's not like complete silence because a lot of movement and thoughts happen in silence. It's just that time to like decompress and not have any outside thoughts on what my day should look like.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, I, man, I have like a playlist called Motivate on my Spotify, and if I'm usually like going on a run, or if I'm just trying to like lock in, and when I'm studying something, that's like the playlist I go to, and it's been like my go-to playlist all of college for the most part. So, but if I'm trying to hype up anything like that, then that's when I switch off to either my '80s with some Michael Jackson, or whatever like that, like Thriller, man. That has been an album I've been playing recently, like on repeat. Such good hits. So
Yeah. Oh, one of my albums that I listen to at work is I've recently rediscovered the Dark Knight soundtrack. So I listen to a lot of soundtracks at work. Yeah, the Dark Knight, and then there's an album. It's Floating Points with the London Symphony Orchestra, which is really good. So a lot of classical music, a lot of like. It's funny how it's changed because it used to be like, metal, deathcore, like deep house, techno, just kind of have like that driving beat. And now, if I really need to get things done, it needs to be like a soundtrack or some sort of like noisescape thing.
yeah, something like instrumental.
Yeah.
That doesn't have lyrics. I've played classical music while I was playing basketball once, and it was actually like motivating, believe it or not, because like every move that you make, it's like a conductor just like conducting the symphony, and it's like, man, this is like it makes you feel like you're doing artwork just with the ball, when you're playing the game. So
Yeah. And like it's incredible looking at like, jazz and classical, and how like you can see how it's influenced rap and other genres. Like you can see like what beats they're pulling from. So it makes total sense why like classical music is energizing, because like it is all music.
absolutely, yeah. Remy, before we started the podcast, you mentioned how we were kind of like seeing if there were any current topics we could kind of dive into, and you said that you live off the grid.
I do.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So I don't, unless I like stumble upon it, and this is also like a double-edged sword, but I don't really stay up to date with a lot of current events unless it's like healthcare, something that's concerning like human services, human life. But I've really found in this 25th year that like I don't have time to follow like drama current events. Like I know there's something going on with like J. Cole and something or somebody, but I just don't have time, or like I don't have time, but I also don't have the interest as I did years ago to like be that involved in other people's life. Because I'm like, I have enough to deal with like, in my life. I have enough to like delegate and think through during the day, where to come home and like get into Twitter drama is too much for me. So I'm not completely off the grid, but when I'm home, like I'm doing things that are either connected to like my hobbies, or and it's a weird crossover because my professional and personal life has become sort of one, which is phenomenal in some ways, or a lot of ways. But yeah, like today, I was working from home, and sort of like my breaks, instead of getting on my phone or doing things, or like just go sit outside or reading. Like I struggle to read with ADHD, but I found like that feels better to me than getting on Twitter right now.
Yeah. Well, and kind of like the way I see it too is like with the internet, you're like when you're hopping into Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, you're like going against the whole world because like people from all over the world are commenting and stuff. And I never understood like growing up when my parents would always be like, don't like limit yourself on YouTube when you're watching or whenever you're watching TV and stuff. Like don't watch too much of it. But now it's like, man, like if I'm on my phone too much, if I'm on the TV too much, it just gives me a headache. And yesterday too, like I was just out in my backyard just reading, and it was like the most
Yeah.
peaceful thing ever. I'm like, I got to do this more now instead of like turning to my phone every 10 seconds,
Yeah, and I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but we were talking about like, one, I don't believe in the saying of like it's the next generation's responsibility to fix things. Like we can all play a part in creating change, but I do think that like this generation and Gen Z is the most pivotal generation, and it's kind of like this balance between the most unserious people of Gen Z versus like those, they don't have to be on the front lines, but like they are driven and they see that like if we don't do something right now, unfortunately it is on us to like really drive that change. Like we are doomed. And I think it's, you can kind of see it in a funny way of like the X division line
Mm-hmm.
of what is this generation about. And like I hate that I'm like sitting here like an old head, like it's this generation, like fuck that. But it really is like we have to do something. Like we have to find something we are passionate about and do the best that we can. And like I get that it's fun to be unserious, but it's to the point where being unserious is like thousands of people are dying.
Mm.
And it costs you more to not have drive and passion in whatever like your skill is. And I think that's also a part of trying to be kind of off the grid, is I'm trying to build like my social responsibility and my contribution to society in this community.
Mm.
And I've not been able to find that sort of on the grid in the sense of like what someone in their mid 20s would do.
Right. Do you feel like it the like you were talking about the unseriousness could cause thousands of people's lives and stuff. Are you specifically referring to people in their early 20s and mid 20s, 30s that are like, I still have time in my life to figure out what I want to do? Is that specifically what you're referring to?
Yeah. And I think a lot of that changed in the pandemic of I definitely lost, like, speaking from personal experience, I definitely lost my drive in the pandemic. Of before the pandemic, I had a very clear vision of like what I'm going to do in my story and how in building my story I can give back to society. And then the pandemic hit and I was like, oh, we're all just going to fucking die. Like I might as well just do what I want and then go out with a bang. And then I realized like how irresponsible that is, and how like not only does it not serve everybody else, it really comes down to not serving me. Because like I kind of forgot that I had this whole passion and this whole drive and whole dream and vision just because like everything came to a standstill. And it's also been a journey to realize, one, where I'm at right now is coming from a place of privilege, but also two is like going back to investing in yourself and the gift of like being selfish in a selfless way, if you get what I mean. Because if I continued to like say, I don't know, like just kind of like sit in my depression and my anxiety and my OCD and all this stuff and not invest in myself. And I'm talking like outside of finding like external resources and healthcare and mental health support, of like, how bad do I want it? If everything else is against me, how bad do I want it?
Mm.
And it's led me here.
Yeah. How does one person, let's say, find that drive or that kind of like that fuel to fuel themselves and push them through to find their why or to find whatever that is that they want to do in life?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, or at least people that I've talked to, when they search for their why, is they search for it in the context of something new. And I think it's, in order to figure out your why, you kind of have to like return home a little bit, and you have to look at what are your favorite things or projects that you've done. What are the group of people that have been around those projects? Who are the people that stood by your side? And like, what is the one thing you always find yourself coming back to, whether you're in like the highest of highs or lowest of lows? And that's sort of your why. And it's never what you want it to be. It's always like, oh, these are just spaces that I've occupied and been in and like led for years. So in finding my why, I had to look at like, okay, how, or like even figuring out how does music, film, and human services even connect for me. Is it's always been about storytelling. It's been about people of color, and it's been about contributing to something bigger than myself and building something that I wish I had as a kid. And so like my why years ago would have been like, I just want to be famous. Like I want to go hang out with Leon Bridges more. But then I was like, it's not serving any of what my skills are or any of what my passions are.
Yeah. Yeah. Like over time, like you were like, oh, okay, let's actually dig deep into what that why is. Because even me, when I was younger too, that I had a way different why than what it is now too. And you kind of like craft it over time. But
Absolutely.
let's talk about Northwest Youth Services. I know we've kind of mentioned that a few times. If you want to tell the audience a little bit about that and what you do in there.
Yeah. So I am the director of radical intervention at Northwest Youth Services, and I oversee, create, and implement all of our art-based services for Black, Indigenous, and Brown youth.
Wow. And how did you get connected to that?
So in, say, like April of 2022, my cousin lives out here. She called me because at that time she was executive director of the Ferndale Chamber of Commerce. She called me and she said, hey, we are working on a documentary about Juneteenth with the Whatcom Health Department and Ferndale Community Services. She's like, do you want to come out and direct this documentary? And at that time, I was living in New Jersey, had no money, and was like, yeah, New Jersey's kind of weird. Like, I don't really fit in. Like, the work is cool, but
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm doing what I'm meant to do. And I said, sure, I'll come out. So I came out in May of 2022 and met everybody. And Jason McGill, who's the executive director of Northwest Youth Services, was in the film. And I met him the day before filming, and I was like, this man, like, I feel like I'm going to be him in the future. Like, everybody in that film and on that set just immediately felt like family. And I directed the film, and I remember I was interviewing Chief, now Sheriff Tanksley, and he was
Shout out to Tanksley.
big shout out. And he was talking about Ferguson and experiencing like kind of the energy and the hate, the negativity of that murder. And in that moment of me interviewing him, I kind of realized, I said, hey, I've never seen an older Black man, or like I've never been this close to an older Black man, and I've never pictured myself getting old. And it completely stopped me in my tracks. And we wrapped on filming, and I immediately told my dad, I said, hey, I kind of feel like I missed out on my culture growing up. I feel like I always was unwelcomed in the neighborhood, and I just felt like I never fit in, and it didn't click until now. And my dad was just kind of like, we did the best we could. Like, I don't know what to tell you. And that broke me. Like, that was one of the hardest comeback points of my life. And like, my mom understood it. Like, she got it, and I feel like she was the one who kind of pushed him to learn more about like having a black kid and sort of how to like have a more welcoming household and all of that. And so when she passed, it was just kind of like it pivoted to him just trying to support me and my brother. And so I couldn't, it was a weird place of, I couldn't really hold blame, but I had to feel my feelings. And so he just kind of said like, I'm sorry, but I don't know what else to tell you. And so we stopped talking for a little bit, and I went back to New Jersey to like edit the film on my laptop and everything. And things got really dark, things got really bad, and I was supposed to go to Chicago to my brother's graduation, and my dad was gonna fly in as well. And I said like, hey, I don't think we should all stay in the same house. Like the energy's not good right now, and I'm just not in the right headspace to like see you. And he didn't listen. And so we all ended up staying in the same house, which is just like icing on the cake. And I said, hey, I really cannot go back to New Jersey right now. Like, I cannot be alone. Like, I don't feel safe being alone right now. And so I flew back to here to see my cousin. And she said, do you want to live with us for a year? And I said, dog, I'm not going back to New Jersey.
Yeah.
Like, I can't do it. I am just living on savings at this point. Like, I need something that has community. I need something that has like a place for me to fully feel my feelings and figure out what's next. And so I ended up moving here in, I think, August of 2022, and started working as a janitor, which is wild. Working the night shifts, just like literally scrubbing shit off of walls and like bugs in the toilet, dealing with really complicated people. And then the opportunity came around to make a part 2 of the Juneteenth documentary. And I was like, interesting. I can't really like see my future right now because all I can think about is being a janitor. But I'm going to take a chance and do this documentary. And so I approached Isaac Gamons-Reese, who was in the first one, and then Jason. And I texted Jason. I said, hey, I'm working on part 2, and I want you to be part of it. Can we set up a meeting to talk about it? And so I went into his office at Northwest Youth Services, and we started talking. We were just having this really good conversation, and I was trying to figure out a way of how the profits from part 2 could go to Northwest Youth Services or like set up some scholarships. And Jason stopped me mid-conversation. He said, do you want to just work for us? And I was like, yeah.
Heck yeah,
Yeah,
I'll take
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
So I applied, and I got the job, and I started in March of 2023.
Wow. So, yeah, you just passed the year anniversary.
I did.
Did you celebrate?
As much as I could.
Was there a cake in there? Cake, celebration?
No, but I got a really nice letter from Jason and like a care package from HR, and I felt very loved.
That's awesome, man. What a journey.
Yeah.
I'm really happy, man. You found that community, and finding community is not easy, man. I've had my own struggles with that too, and and a lot. I know people listening to this have struggled to find community, but pull through, and yeah, that's incredible, man. I want to talk about a little bit of, so you kind of mentioned already how you've had that interest in film and music and the 19 years of experience of doing music and just like being self-taught. How did you, I guess, like, one of the best things that I've learned is to network with people. But I'm curious, like, how did you get connected to Leon Bridges, to Katy Perry, to all these big names? Like, how did you take your passions to the big names?
So in 2013, I did a program called the Grammy Music Revolution Project through the Grammy Museum.
Mm.
And it's a summer camp. And at that time, I think it was the second year. I applied to be in the first year, and I was too young and just didn't get in. And it's a summer camp that it's literally the people from the Grammy Museum. They bring in Grammy artists for folks to learn from. And it's literally like anything from different styles of songwriting to music management, music business, to performance, to like the whole behind the curtain peek. And so I got in the second year, and man, I was just looking at pictures from that time, and I was like, I think I was 14, maybe 13 or 14. And I was so excited. And at that time, like, of course I thought I was hot shit, but I was like, no, no, no. But I got into this program, and it was me and probably like 40 other people. And we just cycled through, like, and that's where I took a class from Fall Out Boy. Seven Dust came in, Matchbox 20, and then just like all these little classes. And then we had a huge performance at one of the big like music venues in Kansas City. And I made friends with, her name's Kate, and she at that time was the senior director of community engagement and I think relations for the Grammy Museum. And we sort of stayed in touch, and I would go out to LA and visit her. And then I started making more connections in LA. And every time I went out, it just seemed like I just happened to like run into all these people.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Kind
it's
of like
like,
what you were mentioning at the beginning about how things just kind of just come your way and happen.
yeah.
You know. Gosh. Who is the most famous celebrity you've met?
Ooh. Probably, I mean, there's a couple. I think Paul Rudd for sure. Met him, I think twice. Olivia Wilde, um, Jason Sudeikis, Taylor Swift.
You've met Taylor Swift.
Yeah, that was back in 2015, I think.
Are you a Swiftie?
I'm not really. I'm sorry. No, I'm not really a Swiftie. I can appreciate it though, but no. Yeah, I think honestly Taylor Swift is probably now is the biggest celebrity.
Yeah, she's probably one of the most famous celebrities. Probably right now, yeah. Especially when she started dating
That was crazy.
Kelsey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was crazy.
Yeah. And then they ended up winning the Super Bowl too this year too. So
Yeah.
that's icing on the cake. That's what's up. That's what's up, man. Well, Remy, man, I love to wrap up the podcast with this question, but kind of like a two-parter. One for specifically Black individuals, and then just a more general piece of advice. But yeah, what advice would you give to the younger generation, to our generation? Just because we're both still young, amidst your experiences and everything that you've been through and just shared with us.
I think for both the younger Black generation and this Black generation is the two big things are don't be afraid to set boundaries, and actually three things. Don't be afraid to set boundaries. If you feel it in your gut, trust it, and find 2 to 3 people that invest in your future and you, and then be that 2 to 3 people for someone else.
And how does one person find those 2 to 3 individuals?
Well, one of the 3 should be yourself. The other 2 should be someone who is very close to what you want to end up doing. And that middle person should be someone who is slightly ahead of you, who can kind of live in both worlds of walking with you through your journey of coming up, or that's the other thing that I don't believe in the saying you've made it, because you can I don't feel like I've made it. I just feel like I've always been on my path. And so you got to find that person who can follow, like walk with you on your path, but also see where the gaps are and push you to say, like, I'm able to walk with you right now, but I see where you want to be and I'm going to push you to that spot. And just knowing that that third person up there is going to catch you and then walk with you and they can kind of cycle through.
Wow. So, okay, let's break it down again. So you have yourself, you have that person that's doing what you want to do, and then you have that person that's been on the journey that you've already been on.
Yeah.
And together, that
Yeah. And that middle
makes
person
everything.
doesn't necessarily have to be like a professional being. It could be any person that you feel like you can confide in and be supported by and be loved is also the huge thing. And like realizing that love is not 100% like whatever you want. Like love is that person who will break you down to say like you have built up something that does not serve you, and these relationships don't serve you, and like who they can kind of like communicate with that end person or that end goal. And not end goal is like this is the end, but like this is where this chapter closes and a new one begins, and say like I can see you from 5 feet away. I can also see you from 5,000 feet away,
Mm.
and be like, I love you, and this needs to stop. So that could be anybody. It could be a parent if you have that relationship, a best friend, a sibling, a cousin,
Anyone,
like anyone.
anyone you're close to. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Appreciate that, Remy. Thank you for the advice. Thank you for hopping on the podcast. Before we wrap up and close everything, is there any last minute shout outs, anything that you want to throw out there or share with the audience?
Um, just want to say I'm very grateful for how far I've come, and it's like lately I've been very emotional lately, and I've just found myself like really choked up and like teary eyed at my journey. And I think this is also the first year that like I've come to really appreciate my journey. And I used to hate my story, and I used to hate like my life because I always looked at things of in the way that they are happening to me, and I'm not an active participant in them. And now that I feel like I am fully participating in my life, it's like I find myself crying more throughout the day because I'm just like, I have been so lucky to be surrounded by so many people that love me and have wanted the best for me in whatever capacity they can give or handle. And also been very choked up, but just like, I always thought that I wouldn't reach a certain age. Um, like, I spent my 25th birthday just crying in a hotel room. Like, it was, and it was all good because it was like, I did this, I made it here, and everything that I have told my younger self is coming true. Um, and so it's just like the amount of gratitude, and it's crazy. Like I'm just proud, and whatever I can do to like share this joy and this journey, um, I think it's the greatest gift to like know yourself and know that what you think is not possible is closer than you think.
Wow. Amen. You should feel celebrated, man. You should feel proud, man. Honestly, a very moving story, very inspiring to me, and I'm sure it's inspired a lot of people that are listening to this. So thank you so much for joining and putting yourself out there. Y'all, I hope you guys enjoyed this awesome episode. Stay tuned for more awesome episodes as season 4 rolls on the Black Experience, and make sure to catch us on Apple Music as well, because now we are on Apple Music. So without further ado, y'all, we'll catch you on the next one. Till next time. Peace.
See ya.